Okay, I guess we're ready to get started. Clerk, could you call the roll for the January 14th, 2019 Board of Control meeting?
Good morning. It's now 11:02 a.m. Calling the roll, Dale Miller. Here. Dan Baker. Here. Trevor Mackler serving as an alternate for Dan Brady. Here. Dennis Kennedy serving as an alternate for Armin Budish.
Here.
And Lenore Lockett. Here. We have a quorum.
Okay, we have before us the Board of Control minutes from January 7th, 2019. Are there any corrections or adjustments to the minutes from anyone? If not, I will motion to approve the minutes. Do I have a second? Second by Mr. McAleer. All those in favor of approval of the minutes indicate by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Board of Control minutes are approved. Is there any public comment today?
No public comment at this time.
Are there any tabled items?
And no tabled items.
Okay, so we should move on to the first scheduled item.
Item BC 2019-25, Department of Public Works, recommending an award on requisition 44078 and enter into a contract with Frank Novak and Sons, Inc. in the amount not to exceed $252,133.50 for interior painting services at various county buildings, and it's for the period January 14th, 2019 through January 13th, 2020.
Matt Reimer with the Department of Public Works. This is an interior paint services contract that we use to perform task order type work through painting needs for all of our county buildings. This was an invitation to bid. 4 bids were received, and Frank Novak and Sons was the lowest bidder. They were also deemed compliant with by OPD by all with their diversity goal submission.
Thanks, Matt. Are there any questions on this item? Seeing none, I'll move to approve the item. Is there a second? Second by Councilman Miller. All those in favor of approval indicate by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? The item is approved.
Thank you.
Thanks, Matt.
I would like to call the roll for Mike Dever. Here. Next item, BC 2019-26, Department of Public Works, submitting an amendment to a contract with Trumbull Industries, Inc. for sewer cleaning tools and supplies for the period July 1st, 2017 through June 30th, 2019, to extend the time period to June 30th, 2020, and for additional funds in the amount not to exceed $200,000.
Good morning, Tom Pavich, Department of Public Works. This item requesting amendment with Trumbull Industries. They provide the plumbing equipment and materials for our sanitary division. Copper, couplings, plastic tubing, extending it 1 additional year, adding additional $200,000.
Thanks, Tom. Are there any questions on this item? Seeing none, I'll move to approve the item. Is there a second? Second by Councilman Miller. All those in favor of approval indicate by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? The item is approved. Thank you.
Next item, BC 2019-27, Department of Public Works, submitting an amendment to a contract with the safety company doing business as MTech Company for equipment, parts, and labor for Q's Inc. sewer inspection camera trucks. And it's for the period September 1st, 2015 through December 31st, 2018, to extend the time period to December 31st, 2019, and for additional funds in the amount not to exceed $80,000.
Good morning, Tom Pavich, Public Works again. Requesting an amendment with MTech for an additional year, additional funds, $80,000. MTech provides the equipment and parts for our sewer inspection trucks. They've been our provider for quite some time. We're just adding additional funds, extending it 1 year.
Any questions on this item? Seeing none, I will move to approve. Is there a second? Second by Mr. McAleer. All those in favor of approval indicate by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? The item is approved.
Thank you.
The next item is a 2-part item, BC 2019-28, Department of Development. A, submitting an RFP exemption on requisition 44014, which will result in a payment to Spirit of Cleveland in the amount of $50,000 for support of the Blockland Solutions Conference for the period December 1st, 2018 through December 4th, 2018. And B, recommending a payment in connection with said RFP exemption.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is a support payment that the county wanted to make to help further the Blockland Conference back in December. Spirit of Cleveland is an affiliate of Destination Cleveland, who are the organizers of the event. think most of you folks know, if you had a chance to attend, that it was very well received by the community, particularly the tech side. It's there's some very promising next steps that are coming out of it, so we'll ask for approval to make this payment.
Okay, any questions on this item? Miller?
At what time did we make the commitment to provide this $50,000 payment?
I think I would have to confirm to be sure, but I believe, Mr. Councilman, it was about the time that they announced the idea of having the event.
Okay. And just to comment that I did attend that conference, and we more than got our $50,000 worth. This put us on the map in terms of this area of activity. The conference was world-class and had presenters from all over the world, and it was tremendous.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Councilwoman Baker?
I agree. I thought the conference I heard went very well. But putting aside the success of the conference, I guess just logistically in approving funds this late, knowing that the conference was coming months earlier, and I understand the explanation of the heavy workload, but we have sponsored other events and seminars and programs before. Why was this one different? Why was the workload any heavier at this point than at other points of funding those type of seminars and things?
At Office of Procurement and Diversity, I can only speak for the comment regarding my employee. The workload was not that this item was a particular extenuating process. The buyer overall workload was significant during this time. That she has a workflow queue, and the items come in, and her goal is to complete the first in, first out. So for that 1 month, she was behind. We have since realigned or distributed some of her work to other buyers. However, they still have their ongoing work. So I can only speak to her review. So the item reached her queue September 23rd, and she was able to review it and give comments October 24th. However, OPD still has to be the last reviewer. There are other departments in that queue, and all of those queues approvals were not obtained till December. So I can only speak to my employee there. I can't speak to what the other delays. But when an item reaches the queue, anyone in that queue has an opportunity to do their review. So the 1 month for ours was based on her workload at that time.
And just to add on, there was some back and forth between our office and OPD and the AIG as to whether or not this vendor actually had to register, since they weren't actually providing any services to the county. And we found out, end of November, I think, that the AIG said, yeah, they needed to register. So that's when we had to get that step done.
I understand all that. It's just at the end of the day, when it comes to us to approve something that's this late, it doesn't look good on paper. It doesn't look good when we're audited. And I would just ask that when you have this happen again, to keep in mind that today, when we're asked to approve something that is over and done, successful or not, I think is immaterial as far as the protocol and the process of what we're here to do in approving these type of contracts. And
yes, we agree, Lenore Locke. At Office of Procurement and Diversity, we definitely agree. And with the ERP, there will be flags 24 hours, 48 hours, and 72 hours. In this case, items appearing in the department person's queue as other items, and there's no way to reassign them without determining from that person in their queue that they're that far behind. It's not an inherent flag.
Hearing none, I will move to approve the item. Is there a second? Second by Mr. Dever. All those in favor of approval indicate by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? The item is approved.
Thank you.
Next item, BC 2019-29, Department of Development, submitting an agreement with the County Planning Commission in the amount not to exceed $30,000 for planning activities and technical assistance for the period November 1st, 2018 through October 31st, 2019.
Good morning, Sarah Parks Jackson with the Department of Development. This is our annual agreement with the County Planning Commission for them to conduct environmental reviews as prescribed by the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development and other technical assistance that they provide to us in regard to HUD regulations.
Thanks, Sarah. Are there any questions? Item's been moved and seconded. All those in favor of approval indicate by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? The item is approved. Thanks, Sarah.
Next item, BC 2019-30, Court of Common Pleas Corrections Planning Board, recommending an award on requisition 44084 and enter into an agreement with Alcohol, Drug Addiction, and Mental Health Services Board of Cuyahoga County in the amount not to exceed $350,679 for fiscal agent services and administration of the Veterans Treatment Court project, and it's for the period September 30th, 2018 through September 29th, 2023.
Good morning, Marty Murphy for the Corrections Planning Board. The board is recommending this award to the Alcohol, Drug, and Mental Health Services Board in the amount not to exceed $350,679 for the Veterans Treatment Court. If you recall, right before the holidays, we had a very similar item where we went through, it was a federal award. It was a start date in September. We went through a process where the award was accepted here in front of this board. It then went over to the Adams Board, went through both their fiscal and program committees, and was accepted by their entire board. The contract was signed, approved. Ultimately, the contract came back over here. This one went down the same track as the one prior to the holidays, but diverged a little bit afterward, where there was a holdup because there are two different sets of dates with this particular federal award. They awarded us a 5-year project period. They only funded the first 3 years, and that's not unusual. They've done it before where they've awarded us 3 years and funded us 1 or funded us 5 out of 5. It all depends on what their financial situation is at that time for their cash flow. But because of that, there were questions, and ultimately this did not get back onto the agenda until after the holidays. In terms of what we receive for this, 100% of the money goes to services for veterans in the community, either substance use disorder services or mental health services. There's a little bit for medication-assisted treatment as well. The Adams Board acts as a pass-through and the fiscal agent for that, and the reason we go through the board is we're able to leverage up, and for every dollar we use here, we'll probably spend an additional $2 of Medicaid that would not be available if we didn't go another way.
Are there any questions on this item? Councilman Miller?
Can you explain why this was supposed to start on 9/30/2018 and is just getting here now?
Right. We received the award in the late summer, and as I said, once we received it, we accepted it. We went through the whole process with the Adams Board to get the contracts, and finally now it's coming back to you for the approval on this. This particular Veterans Treatment Court, it's Veterans Treatment Court 2 for the lack of better word or term, name, actually did not begin operation until last week on Thursday, and none of the funds have been spent at this point in time.
Okay. And my second question, is this the entire $350,679 for fiscal agent and administrative services, or is part of that money actually for services?
It's 100% of it is for services. I mean, the Adams Board is the fiscal agent for it. They will administrate it. They hold the contracts with a pool of approved providers across the county through their network. So they are the fiscal agent. They'll pay the funds out to those particular providers. But it's 100%, the amount of money, the $350,000 is 100% for services.
Well, my question, and I see this from time to time, and I'm going to keep bringing this up, is that the way this is written, it looks like all this money is being spent for administration, where in fact almost none of it's being spent for administration.
None of it.
And so I'm suggesting that when we write this, that we should write it so that we make it clear that the money is for services, so that anyone in the public that might read this doesn't get the wrong impression that we're spending huge amounts of money for administrative services and paperwork and not for treatment.
Thank you, sir. Yes, I agree.
Just one follow-up on that. How is the contract itself actually written with Adams? Does it say fiscal agent? And
No, it identifies for pooled services for providers. It does not, it may say that they're the fiscal agent, but it does not incorporate any dollars whatsoever for the Adams Board.
okay.
Mr. Chair, the contract does reflect exactly what's on the agenda for fiscal agent services and administration services. That's how it was written.
Mr. McAleer.
Marty, do you know offhand how much of the 350 goes towards substance abuse and addiction services versus mental health services, approximately?
This is a new contract. One of the limits we found when we initially kicked off Veterans Treatment Court was we found that it was a substance abuse and mental health services funded initiative. It came through the Substance Abuse Center for Substance Abuse Treatment. We put 100% of the money in for Center for Substance Abuse Treatment related funds, items. In this new RFP and in this new award, we did indicate that one of the lessons learned was that just about every single one of the vets that we saw had mental health services as well. So we have not yet paid for mental health services to get a breakdown in terms of how much will go for one versus the other. I'd be inclined to think, though, it'll be close to 50-50.
Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, I will move to approve the item. Is there a second? Second. Second by Mr. Dever. All those in favor of approval indicate by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? The item is approved.
Next item, VC 2019-31, Court of Common Pleas, Juvenile Court Division, Domestic Relations Division, and Probate Court Division. Recommending an award on requisition 42899 and enter into a master contract with various providers in the total amount not to exceed $482,359.64 for interpretation and translation services for the period January 1st, 2019 through December 31st, 2020 for the following vendors: Certified Interpreters United LLC, the Cleveland Hearing and Speech Center, and Cross Thread Solutions LLC.
Good morning, Sarah Baker, Juvenile Court. We did issue an RFP for interpretation services. Juvenile Court kind of takes the lead for all of the divisions of common pleas here. 4 vendors did apply for this. However, we've chosen only to go with the 3 as listed below. And like I said, this does cover all 4 divisions of the Court of Common Pleas.
Thank you. Any questions for Sarah? Mr. McAleer.
Sarah, do you have any background information? A lot of vendors look like they pulled the RFP but didn't respond. Up to, looks like 100 pulled. Do you know why so many would have pulled but didn't consider responding to the actual bid?
I do not know. I know that the other vendor that did apply, we've had some experience with them in the past, and it was not positive experience, so that was one of the reasons why we didn't choose that other vendor that applied. I can check with our OPD buyer and see if she got any feedback regarding the vendors that pulled it but didn't apply.
Just a high number compared to
Any other questions? Seeing none, I will move to approve the item. Is there a second? Second by Mr. Dever. All those in favor of approval indicate by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? The item is approved.
Next item, BC 2019-32, Court of Common Pleas, Juvenile Court Division, submitting an amendment to a master contract with various providers for diagnostic, clinic, psychologist, and psychometrist services for the period January 1st, 2018 through December 31st, 2018, to extend the time period to December 31st, 2019, to remove various vendors and for additional funds in the total amount not to exceed $175,000 as listed on the printed agenda.
Sarah Baker with Juvenile Court. This is just an amendment to our current contract for Psychologist Services downstairs in our diagnostic clinic. The vendors that are being removed, they're being removed due to retirement. 2 out of the 4 are retiring, and the other 2 we've had some issues with in the past and have chosen not to continue with them on our master contract. We did do an RFQ for this about 1.5 years ago, so this is just the 2nd year of this contract. These individuals are completing things like our psychological evaluations, our custody evaluations, or any bind-over evaluations or competency hearings. So that's kind of the type of work that they're completing.
Thank you. Any questions? Seeing none, I'll move to approve the item. Is there a second? Second by Mr. Dever. All those in favor of approval indicate by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? The item is approved.
Next item, BC 2019-33, Court of Common Pleas, Juvenile Court Division, recommending an award on requisition 42916 and enter into a contract with Redwood Toxicology Laboratory, Inc. in the amount not to exceed $80,000 for drug screening and testing services for the period February 1st, 2019 through January 31st, 2021.
Sarah Baker with Juvenile Court. We did issue an RFP for our drug testing services. 2 vendors submitted, and we've chosen Redwood. They're our current vendor as well. The other vendor that applied was more so for like human resources type testing, so it didn't even really match what our scope of work was. Redwood has historically had the best price and the best services. We haven't had any issues with them in the past.
Thank you. Any questions or comments? Seeing none, I will move to approve the item. Is there a second? Second by Mr. Demper. All those in favor of approval indicate by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? The item is approved.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next item, BC 2019-34, Sheriff's Department, submitting an amendment to a contract with Educare Medical Staffing, LLP, for temporary nursing services for the period September 17, 2018 through December 31st, 2019, for additional funds in the amount not to exceed $300,000.
Good morning, Donna Cleel, excuse me, Sheriff's Fiscal Manager, requesting approval to amend the current nursing contract we have for jail medical services for our nurses. This contract, we underestimated its use by quite a bit, so now we're asking to put more funds in there. We don't know how long the transition with Metro Health is going to take. We have no idea. So we're asking to put these funds in there, and to be perfectly honest with you, I'm probably going to start another amendment right behind this one for even more funding, because the cost every month right now is running anywhere from $80,000 to $100,000 a month.
Are there any questions? Mr. McAleer.
So the 300,000 here gets you how many, do you know like approximately how many hours or how many nurses for the month or for the week?
I know I can't tell you exactly, but I know, again, the invoices are about $80,000 to $100,000 a month, but I do know the cost per nurse, if I'm not mistaken, I think for an LPN is about $58 an hour, and an RN is about, I'm sorry, I got that reversed. An LPN is about $40 an hour, and an RN is about 58, something like that. And that includes, you know, all of their benefits and things like that. How many hours? I can get you an answer to that. I do know that we are on a daily basis using Educare nurses, I think to the tune of 10 to 15 nurses a day, and that's to staff Bedford, Euclid, and our county jail. And now again, with what's going on with Metro Health and that it's kind of out there, we're getting a lot more call-offs and things like that. We've had a couple more resignations, so that use may increase even.
Know how many nurses is there a limit to how many they could provide per day in case you get more call-offs or people start resigning?
Well, they're telling us right now they're okay. if that happens, then one of the things one of our options would be, we still have the mission critical, the second one sitting there, that's with Alliance. And that still has a 23,900 in there. So if that does start to happen, what I will probably do is start working on maybe a second mission critical. And I've already talked to Lenore about going back to the original bid where we got Educare and maybe even putting a second nursing contract in place with the next bidder if we have to. I mean, I do have some options. We're trying to play the timing correct because, again, Metro Health they're saying anywhere from 2 months to 6 months this whole thing could take. So that's a big range. But right now Educare is telling us they're okay. They can continue to provide. Again, if we start losing a lot more county nurses, that could change, and that could change quickly. So what we may do is, and I'm guessing we will be using the second mission critical pretty quick. And maybe even starting a third mission critical or starting a second long-term contract. Again, I'll have to talk to the sheriff and see what route he wants to take on this.
Mr. McAleer?
Just, do you notice if you're using RNs or LPNs more than the other? Or is it about the same?
That I don't know, but I can get you that answer too. So you want to know what's the ratio of RNs to LPNs, and then also about how many hours monthly were.
Please.
Yeah, I can get you both of those.
Thank you, John.
Sure.
Miller?
So am I correct that this is all a transitional arrangement and that when we make the deal with Metro that they're going to provide all of these services at all of the jails? Is that the plan?
Councilman Miller, that's what I'm being told, and I certainly hope so. But that's what I'm being told. This is transitional. When we originally put this in place, this was going to be kind of a long-term answer, but now with the new developments, I'm being told this is just a transitional. However, it's a transitional item, but the use is going to be heavy over the next couple of months. At least that's what I'm being told.
And am I correct that none of this money was budgeted, and this is all money that's gonna require use of general fund reserves? Is that
Correct. Now, what we're doing, and I met with OBM last week, we're not, for this particular item, we're not asking for an additional funding. We're just going to use what's in our budget right now, and then probably around mid-year, third quarter, we're going to revisit the budget and see kind of where we're at that time. That was the best suggestion when me and Maggie kind of put our heads together.
Well, we're about to look at budget amendments for 2019. We ought to forecast it now and incorporate it into our update for the 2019 budget.
Okay, and again, I'll have another discussion with Maggie on that if that's with the OBM on that, whatever you want to do.
Yeah, we can. On that.
Okay, absolutely.
One question.
Councilman Baker?
Given that there are funds involved here and we are extending it, and of course this is, has a high level of need, is the cooperation and communication good between the Sheriff's Office and Metro Health? Do we have a plan or an understanding as to when transition will occur and how much funding they may think you may need in order for them before they can step in? It sounds like we're working on some guesswork and kind of what I hear, not really directly involved in the actual engagement.
Neither am I. I'm not really in these negotiations. My understanding is a proposal was put forward. I think it was the $13 million, and that did include all nursing. But you're asking me, first of all, what's the timeline?
Yeah, I'm asking if you're asking for the additional $300,000 because those are the funds you think you need based on the gap and transition between when you stop and when they begin, and that's driven by good communication between Metro Health and you.
There's very good communication between Metro Health, myself, the sheriff. When I started this amendment, that was the amount I thought we would need.
Okay.
In the interim, this new development came and the announcement came out, Metro Health taking over. We started losing more nurses. So now that's why I'm thinking that right behind this amendment, there may be another. Whether we would use it or not, if this whole transition took place over the next couple of months, then we would just decertify it. But that's a question I can't answer because I'm being told 2 to 6 months, and that's a pretty big range.
Yeah. I just may, is Metro, do they have an understanding of your loss of nurses and the potential of needing more funding until they get engaged? Are they part of that
Oh, yeah,
conversation?
as a matter of fact, Metro Health, the jail, the medical administrator and the acting DON, the director of nursing, are Metro employees. They're the ones calling Educare on a daily basis saying, send us 10, send us 12. So they're well aware of what's going on. And Dr. Tallman and I are in communication constantly about call-offs and resignations, things like that.
Okay, that's good to know. Thank you.
Any other questions? Seeing none, I will move to approve the item. Is there a second? Second by Mr. McAleer. All those in favor of approval indicate by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? The item is approved.
Thank you.
Item number BC 2019-35, Sheriff's Department, submitting an agreement with State of Ohio Attorney General on behalf of the Bureau of Criminal Investigation in the amount not to exceed $180,000 for National Web Check Program services and equipment for criminal background checks on applicants seeking employment for the period January 1st, 2019 through December 31st, 2021.
Good morning, Lilia Lathan, Sheriff's Department. We are requesting permission to enter into a contract with BCI. It's a 3-year contract in order to pay invoices that we currently are paying on voucher, or we were paying on voucher, but we have been advised that we had to enter into a contract going forth in order to pay the invoices.
Any questions? Seeing none, I'll move to approve the item. Is there a second? Second by Mr. Dever. All those in favor of approval indicate by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? The item is approved. Thank you.
Next item, BC 2019-36, Sheriff's Department, submitting an agreement with Cuyahoga County Community College Public Safety Training Center in the amount not to exceed $26,400 for rental of space at the Firearms Range located at 11,000 West Pleasant Valley Road in Parma for use by deputies and protective services officers for the period January 14th, 2019 through January 13th, 2020.
Good morning again. So we're requesting approval to enter into this contract with Tri-C in order to get our deputies and our protective service officers. They have to qualify every year to carry a firearm. And we currently, of course, don't have the range down in the Justice Center any longer. It needs a renovation, and I don't even think they're going to go that route. So now we need to get a place where we can qualify. So we want to contract with Tri-C in order to continue, their mandated qualifications.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Seeing none, I'll move to approve the item. Do I have a second? Second by Councilman Miller.
Thank you.
All those in favor of approval indicate by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? The item is approved.
Thank you.
Thanks.
The next item is a two-part item, BC 2019-37, Department of Health and Human Services, Community Initiatives Division, Office of Homeless Services. A, submitting an RP exemption on requisition 44153, which will result in an award recommendation to Metanoia Project, Inc., in the amount not to exceed $25,000 for shelter and hospitality services for shelter-resistant persons during the cold weather months for the period January 1st, 2019 through May 30th, 2019, and B, recommending the award in connection with said RFP exemption.
Good morning, Shari Ware, Office of Homeless Services. Each year for the last several years, the county has provided this level of funding to Metanoia, which assists people who are shelter resistant during the cold weather months. People can it's open on the weekends. And people can be inside there if they choose. They can get food, showers, and so forth. And so this would just continue the county support for that project.
Any questions? Councilman Miller.
Just a comment. We have had a problem in the past with this item when it's it's come in pretty late and come in as the program was wrapping up, making it difficult for Metanoia to match expenditures with the money because it's done on a reimbursement basis. So I would like to thank the administration for putting this through in a timely fashion this year, which will be very helpful, and just ask that the remaining steps of the process be completed quickly so that they can be in business. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Hearing none, I will make a motion to approve the item. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilman Miller. All those in favor of approval indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The item is approved. Thank you.
Next item, BC 2019-38, Department of Health and Human Services, Community Initiatives Division, Office of Homeless Services, submitting an amendment to a contract with United Way of Greater Cleveland for web-based housing listing services in connection with the Homeless Crisis Response Program for the period January 1st, 2018 through December 31st, 2018, to extend the time period to August 31st, 2019, and for additional funds in the amount not to exceed $18,900.
We're Office of Homeless Services. This is simply an extension of this contract, and the service is a web-based application where I mean anybody can use it, but it's particularly helpful for people in shelter and other low-income, unstably housed people, because they can search for rentals where they know that they will be accepted, and can search by the number of bedrooms, proximity to schools, proximity to public transit, churches, and those sorts of things, and can oftentimes aid in shortening the length of time people remain homeless.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Hearing none, I'll move to approve the item. Is there a second? Second by Mr. Dever. All those in favor of approval indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The item is approved.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The next item is a two-part item, item BC 2019-39, Department of Health and Human Services, Community Initiatives Division, Family and Children First Council. A, submitting an RP exemption on requisition 43866, which will result in an award recommendation to Case Western Reserve University on behalf of the Begun Center for Violence Prevention, Research and Education, and the Center of Innovative Practices, Mandel School of Applied Social Science, in the amount not to exceed $280,000 for evaluation services for various programs for the period January 1st, 2019 through December 31st, 2019, and B, recommending the award in connection with said RP exemption.
Good morning, Kathleen Johnson from Family and Children First Council. We are requesting an RP exemption for our evaluation services through Cleveland, oh my goodness, Case Western Reserve University. I just talked to my son last night who goes to Case, I'm sorry. We had discussed having an RFP exemption because we did an RFP for evaluation services in 2012 and 2015. We only had 2 vendors respond in 2012, and only Case Western Reserve University responded in 2015. And we also asked for the exemption because of the service coordination coaches. They are connected to our state Family Children First Council, and they advise the state on services through service coordination. And we contract with them to help coach and train our liaisons with the different county agencies, public and private, as well for our service coordination program. And the evaluation program covers 6 programs for our office. Out of school time, which is our biggest program, they evaluate 60 to 80 providers. They do regular out of school time evaluations called the DAP survey with children and parents to evaluate the services based on the youth's perspective and the parents' perspective on how the providers are performing and helping to develop them as children and youth. They do quality assurance, and that also drives our professional development. Our YOU program, or our youth internship program, Families and Schools Together, Teen Pregnancy Prevention Program, and our Youth Advocacy and Leadership Coalition. We have had conversations with the PEI department under Leon Harris if they could handle the volume of our evaluations, and they cannot. So they did take over our Closing the Achievement Gap program beginning mid last year.
Any questions or comments on this item? Councilwoman Baker?
Is this a new program or is this an ongoing?
It's ongoing. We've had evaluation services for about 8 years.
About 8 years, and you've gotten the reporting and the
Yes.
results and success has been there?
Yes, ma'am. We get quarterly reports, and we get an annual report. We meet with CASE monthly to go over the data dumps that we get from the different service providers. So it's an intensive program.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? I have one quick one.
Yes, sir.
How is the contract billed? Is it hourly rates according to a schedule, or is it a fixed amount?
It's an hourly rate that they send to us depending upon how many hours they bill. But they bill monthly. I could get you the amount that we pay. Like each person on their evaluation team gets a certain amount. Like the lead evaluator is Chris Dorman, so he gets probably the highest amount because he's a lead evaluator. But they have a fiscal person. They have assistants. It's a team of about, I think, 6 people that we meet with regularly.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? I will move to approve the item. Is there a second? Second by Mr. Dever. All those in favor of approval indicate by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? The item is approved. Thank you.
Next item, BC 2019-40, Department of Health and Human Services, Community Initiatives Division, Family and Children First Council, recommending an award on requisition 43496 and enter into a contract with Youth Opportunities Unlimited in the amount not to exceed $205,000 for Youth Employment Internship Program Management Services, and it's for the period January 1st, 2019 through December 31st, 2019.
Good morning, Kathleen Johnson, Family and Children First Council. This is a contract we would like to enter into with Youth Opportunities Unlimited for our Youth Employment Internship Program. It was RFP'd this year. We had to do a second release because we did change the program model of how we previously wanted services for the youth. So YOU did win the bid for the RFP. We're going to change the model to be more intensive and more hand-holding with the youth. And our hope is to have them evaluate services and what the youth are getting from the youth internship program, not just hard skills, but soft skills. So we were originally using about 125 youth per year, but now we've lowered the number to 40 or 50 youth per year, but they want more intensive services. So it's not just you're working at a Wendy's, which is valuable, but what are your long-term goals and what is your career goal? What is your career path? Are you entering into the right field for you? We've had youth who would enter into, or think they want to be a doctor but don't like blood. So then you have to change your thought pattern of where you really want to work at. So we want the service to be more intensive with the youth.
Thank you. Are there any comments or questions? Councilwoman Baker?
If you were servicing 125 youths and you're now going to be servicing 40 to 50, what happens to those 75 that were previously in the program or could be? Is there a waiting list now or criteria that needs to be? How do you go from 125 to 50?
What the plan is going to have is that they're going to be rolling over, so they will have an enrollment process. And then they'll enter in, and then like within the next 6 months, they might have another group to start. So because this is our first time doing it this way, we have to work out all the kinks of it. We can keep you all updated on to how that works out, and are we really serving more as the year goes on instead of just keeping it at a lower amount?
Please.
So for the same amount of money, you think you're going to still service the same amount of youths, but do it perhaps more of a gradual?
Yes, it's going to be more gradual, but more intensive.
The time frame change as to how long you'll have those youths, that it turns over quicker? Or?
No, actually, we want the time to be longer so that we're tracking the youth. They usually come in, they do the testing, they find what spot they want to go to, and then once they're done, after their actual internship is done, we are no longer really in contact with them. So what we'd like to do is to make it more longitudinal. And of course, that's going to be based on our budget, especially with this being a budget year coming up. But can we track these youth 3 years out and follow them even maybe into college? Did this service really help guide you to the program that you really want to go into and make your career?
Sounds interesting. Good luck.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Hearing none, I will move to approve the item. Is there a second? Second by Mr. McAleer.
Thank you.
All those in favor of approval indicate by saying aye. Okay. Any opposed? The item is approved. Thank you.
Next item, BC 2019-41. It's a two-part item, Department of Health and Human Services, Division of Children and Family Services. A, submitting an RFP exemption on requisition 44419, which will result in an award recommendation to John Lawson in the amount not to exceed $10,000 for legal services for youth in custody. And it's for the period September 1st, 2018 through December 31st, 2019. And B, recommending the award in connection with said RFP exemption.
Good morning, Bob Math from the Department of Health and Human Services on behalf of Division of Children and Family Services. This is recommending a contract award to John Lawson to provide legal representation to kids that are in the custody of DCFS. He handles only those cases that are emergency in nature and strictly on a case-by-case basis. In the past, Mr. Lawson, I mean, obviously you see the contract is backdated to September 1st, and I think you've maybe seen my response. In the past, Mr. Lawson was paid on a fee agreement that was arranged a number of years ago, and then back in the fall, it was determined that they wanted more formalized the agreement with Mr. Lawson, so they began to have contract conversations with him. The conversation been going on since the fall. Apparently, one attorney started it, and then the attorney left the county and was picked up by somebody else, and that was the delay. Also, there are some issues with the insurance requirements and the hourly rate that had to be negotiated. During this time, though, Mr. Lawson was under the assumption that this fee agreement was still in place, and DCFS was still calling him on evenings, weekends, holidays. Those are really the emergencies to provide this legal representation for these children. And he continued to provide these services, not knowing that this agreement, this contract would not be formalized till later on in the calendar year.
Any questions? Councilman Miller?
So, have we incurred expenses that have not been paid, and if so, how much?
Yes, I spoke with Mr. Lawson. He's handled about 8 cases since September 1st. So he has billings of about $300,000 or $400,000. $3,000 or $4,000. That we have not, of course, we have not processed them because there's no contract in place, no mechanism to pay these bills.
And why was there not done some kind of RFP process? I'm sure there's a lot of people who could provide this work.
That's a fair question. I don't know. We were just asked, we got involved just to process, I think going forward, surely an RFP process is appropriate.
And just a comment, I've known John Lawson for years. I served in city council with him. I don't think the relationship rises to the level of a recusal being required, but I'm just going to state it out there so it's public.
Very good. Mr. McAleer?
Bob, you said we spent approximately 8 cases, $3,000 to $4,000 so far. Is the $10,000 going to be enough to get you through December 31st? Because we're in January and we've already spent the $4,000.
I think that the number of referrals is really, there's no way to manage how many referrals DCFS makes during the course of a month or the course of a year. In the past, the fee agreement was a flat fee of $500, regardless of the number of hours Mr. Lawson put into the case. Sometimes they were over in a day, sometimes they lingered on for several weeks, and it was a flat fee. In this new contract, it was a negotiated rate of $150 an hour. Will that be enough? There's no way to know. That was the dollar amount that the law department, Mr. Lawson, came to terms with, thought that would hopefully cover us through the balance of the calendar year.
And then Councilman Miller asked about why we didn't do a public process, and I think you mentioned something about what you were just asked to go with John Lawson. I mean, what circumstances were around that? Because, I mean, it does seem like other attorneys could do this as well.
No, I think there was this, this fee agreement was in place for apparently a number of years. How that emanated, you know, I have no idea, to be perfectly candid. I think going forward, you know, I think we should issue an RFP, you know, because to your point, there are obviously a number of attorneys in town that can handle these sorts of cases. Whether they can handle it at $150 an hour is another issue, but we can surely put that out for bid.
And do you know, you said a number, you just had when we started using Mr. Lawson for these type of services?
Well, I think you know, a fee agreement, those are developed back in 2015. You know, I think prior to that, I think he was doing a fair amount of, I think, pro bono work. You know, he was working with a lot of kids in custody through, you know, that were involved in it used to be the runaway shelter at the free clinic, if you recall, you know, back a number of years ago. And he was providing, you know, so he, you know, that's kind of what he does. So he's been doing this for a lot of years. But then in 2015, they entered into this fee agreement process with him.
Any other comments or questions? Hearing none, I will move to approve the item. Is there a second? Second by Mr. Dever. All those in favor of approval, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The item is approved. Thank you.
Thank you.
Moving on to exemptions, item BC 2019-42, Department of Health and Human Services, Community Initiatives Division, Office of Homeless Services. Submitting an RP exemption on requisition 44139, which will result in an award recommendation to the Salvation Army in the amount not to exceed $538,467 for the PASS Rapid Rehousing Program for single adults in connection with the fiscal year 2017 HUD Continuum of Care Homeless Assistance Grant Program. And it's for the period October 1st, 2018 through September 30th, 2019.
Good morning, Shari. We're Office of Homeless Services. This program is funded through the Federal Homeless Competition, which HUD runs annually. And in order to apply for funds, an organization has to be named as the provider of the services. And so this is for the PASS program, which serves single adult men. And the specific program is designed to help those men leave shelter as quickly as possible and to exit to permanent housing.
Are there any questions on this item? Seeing none, I will make a motion to approve the exemption. Is there a second? Second by Mr. McAleer. All those in favor of approval indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The item is approved.
Thank you.
And now do we have any other exemptions?
No.
Okay. So we'll move on to the consent agenda. If everybody can take a look at items 2019-43
Through 52.
Through 52. And we'll give you a minute to do that. Does anybody have any question about any item contained on the consent agenda? Seeing that there are no questions or comments. Oh, I'm sorry.
I would just like to follow up on this one item that I asked a question about. And this is part of BC 2019-52, and it's items number SH-19-44352 and SH-19-44353. The contract with Josh and Paper and Packaging. I know that we have a large county-wide contract in place with them that we approved not too long ago. And I'm wondering why this is done separately and not a part of that larger contract, which might be more economical.
Tom Pavich, Department of Public Works. I don't want to speak out too loudly on behalf of the Sheriff's Office. You know, we oversee building facilities, and our Josh and contract that's included with that is for the chemical cleaning, the toilet paper, the paper towels. I think in many cases, the sheriff, they may buy additional stuff that goes either beyond that or on their own. I don't recall, I was copied on that answer, the response that the Sheriff's Office provided, but I believe the sheriff, they have their own budget. Why they buy internally versus off of, say, a larger contract, I don't know. I don't know what how often they purchase, but it may be something we could revisit in the future as far as combining contracts. But generally, Public Works, we buy on behalf of just the facility buildings. If there's individual business units that want to purchase additional stuff beyond that that comes out of their budget, they would do it on their own.
Okay, I just suggest looking into in the future whether we can combine this with the broader Johnson contract that we have. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
To that, right, Lenore? That's the purpose of strategic sourcing, is to determine what agencies share a common interest in combining those wherever practical into one bigger contract. So we can take a look at that.
Yes.
Okay, any other questions on the consent agenda? Seeing none, I will move to approve the consent agenda as it is presented. Is there a second? Second by Councilman Miller. All those in favor of approval indicate by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? The consent agenda is approved. Or is there any other business?
No other business at this time.
So I will move to adjourn the meeting. Is there a second? Second by Mr. Heckler. All those in favor of adjournment signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? We are adjourned, correct?
I would just like to say one other, I would just like to make one other comment. Due to the holiday next week on Monday, the next scheduled Board of Control meeting will take place on Tuesday.
Thank you.